All right, folks, what you see here is a Bauernwehr, or peasant defense, made by Quinn Waterfield, who also made the Igorot headhunting axe, and will also be making the winning design from the weapon design contest. If you notice something weird, I'll get to that. So this is basically similar to the Messer in principle, except that it's shorter typically. And you had quite a number of these very different shapes and lengths. These were popular in the Middle Ages as a tool and defensive weapon as well for the lower classes who couldn't afford arming swords and things like that. So he made this out of reclaimed spring steel, which is either 6150 or 5160. It's tempered to a hardness of 50 to 55 HRC, and the handle scales are made of Cumaru, which is a type of hardwood that is extremely strong, stiff, and hard. Yeah, that writes itself. Quinn sent this to me for destructive testing because he wants to know exactly how good it is and what the limits are, etc. And so I started out, as usual, just some bottle cutting just to see how well it cuts in general. It's a nice wide blade, excellent edge on there, nice gradual taper, very well finished. And then I also tried chopping wood, which again, it did absolutely flawlessly. There's a very strong blade, and you can really hack hard into wood and nothing happens at all. Like, the edge took 0 damage. The hilt construction is very solid, no issue here. The only thing that I personally find a little bit awkward is that the handle scales are quite thin. So you can see it is very wide in relation to its thickness. Personally, I would have made them a little thicker. It's not really a big deal, but it's just something that sits a little strange in my hand. And he asked me to be rough with it. In fact, to break it straight up. Now, it's still in one piece, as you've seen, because I couldn't really bring myself to escalate things further than I did. The person who lived here before made cabinets and countertops and used a lot of cultured marble, apparently. And there's some pieces still lying around here. Cultured marble, by the way, is not pure marble. It's resin with stone particles, so it's not quite that hard, but you can imagine a very abrasive material that's not exactly gentle to a blade. Well, apparently that's nothing for the spine, so let's try the edge. What am I doing? I'm a monster! Are you serious? It's like it wasn't there. It sure flexes. And no set. Tiny bit of edge damage. Next step was to throw it while not being overly careful with the distance, because if it hits with the hilt first and everything, it's all good. We're playing rough here. That's the idea, to be abusive, to be hard on it. A few of those throws were pretty hard impact on the hilt, and that's also when the handle scales popped off, or one at least, one did. It's popping straight back on. And I could just put it back on and knock it a couple of times to fit it again, and it was perfectly good. So that was no problem, it didn't crack. All right, so after all the brutal testing, without resharpening, we'll see how it does now. Why are you interested in the camera, you dumbass mosquito? I'll smack you with the flat of the blade. So after all that hard use, it still cuts the mats without a problem. It's a really good cutter. In fact, as long as the edge alignment is good, it's pretty frickin' impressive. I wanted to call it there because I figured, you know, I've done a lot to this thing, but then I remembered that he wanted me to break it. So I was like, okay, fine. There's an old, rusty, broken shovel here. So I set it up and hit it edge on edge against the shovel. Shovels are pretty hard, as it turns out. And there was quite a substantial nick in this blade. Less so in the shovel, interestingly enough. And so this was pretty messed up. There was some steel torn out. So I did some grinding to take out that nick, and that's why you have that little dip there, that wavy part. Makes you wonder if originally the idea for the first wavy blade was actually this, you know, just grinding out some nicks and being like, you know what, how about I do this a number of times. When you have significant edge damage, there are only so many things you can do. The best result in terms of looks would be to basically blend it with the rest. So if I had ground this some more to kind of gradually bring it back to the main edge without that strong dip, it would be a lot more subtle, and do that here as well. That way you lose more material, of course. The simplest, like the lazy option, would be to simply kill all mosquitoes. Ha! I got it. How do you like that, huh? Piece of shit. What was I saying? So yeah, the easiest version would be to simply smooth out the nick. You could do that too, of course. Just grind a little bit to make sure that it's all smooth. That saves the most material. That's really all I could bring myself to do. Because what else do you want me to do? I mean, I could repeatedly do hacking edge on edge. I could put it on a vise and hit it with a hammer a couple of times. I could put it in the vise and just bend it until it breaks. Things like that, but that would just pain me to do. So I think it has suffered enough, and I think it's safe to say that this is perfectly good quality. Basically, really the only thing that could be improved is to make the connection between the tang and the handle scales more secure, but at the same time, the way it is perfectly fine. I mean, you're not supposed to throw it and let the hilt hit the target. That was just for abusive test purposes, and particularly as you're using it, you're wrapping your fingers around it anyway, so this really should not pop off under normal circumstances, and it didn't loosen up during any of the other tests, so it's perfectly fine. Another thing to point out is I really like the color of the steel on the nail guard here and the bolster. This looks fantastic because it's basically a gray. It's kind of like a gunmetal gray, which looks really nice. I quite like that. And yeah, it's very well made. So personally, I have no complaints at all. Tanked all the damage that I threw at it all the way up to the shovel. That was a bit much, but other than that, really good weight and balance. It's of course an extremely quick blade to use, and yeah, I really appreciate it. This turned out very well. So I don't know if you're satisfied with that, Quinn. We'll talk about it. If you want me to rent a tank and run it over, I don't know. But I think I think that's pretty good. So hope you found it entertaining. Thanks for watching and have a good one, folks.